Okay, so Nick, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the shape today, because Ruben Amorim said ahead of the game that even though the headlines were all about "I won't change for the Pope," he did also say that there would be an evolution, and I think there was some signs. I think you agree of flexibility with the famous, infamous three at the back, a little bit more of a shift towards a classic 4-4-2 at times, in and out of possession. What do you think about
Yeah, absolutely. We've touched briefly in the immediate post match about this, and I thought it was really interesting. Two things I'd say: Delit's role and Ahmad's role. So I think Delit clearly has had an instruction. Obviously, something worked this week around monitoring Cole Palmer. And then as soon as he's replaced, he's monitoring Santos on that kind of, well, our right channel, their left. And he's asked to follow him out. So that sometimes is Pedro, if Pedro comes over to the right side. So he's been asked to press whoever's nearest to him. But what I would say is there was clearly a plan about Palmer. And then
that?
that's turned to, yeah, let's just stick with Santos as well. So we see De Ligt back to his opening game form against Arsenal, pressing high, keeping close to his man. He's strong in the challenge. He's winning three or four aerials, which was pleasing to see after the Burnley and City games. And he's stuck to his task well. And then when we get the ball, he happens to be in that, higher up the pitch, beyond the halfway line, in that right channel. And there's no coincidence to me that he then ends up in what I'd call some Gary Neville positions. He's got the ball high and right, and he's playing in crosses. Yes, we've said sometimes his final ball is lacking, but there's no kind of shortness of attitude getting up to those areas, playing alongside Bruno, interchanging with Mazraoui. Um, so that was really pleasing to see. And at times it was classic 4-4-2. You see Shaw and Maguire come across. You see Dorgu tucks in as an auxiliary left back. And you also see Ahmad have a really interesting role. And I want to credit Amrim there as well, because he'll know that right side. So I think it was Neto and Reece James initially, and he'll want to have prepared something there. So you see Ahmad just sitting back ever so slightly. So we see something of the Arsenal game again. We see Ahmad a bit further deeper, not necessarily the same positions as the Arsenal game, but we see Mbumo high, and we see Sesko just dropping in. So we see a classic one-on-one approach from our forward two, and Ahmad sitting ever so slightly deeper again. And I think again, just watching out for that threat from wide areas. And that was a theme we saw play throughout the night. So often you'd look across and it'd be Ahmad, Bruno, Casemiro, and Mazraoui there, and De Ligt just behind on the overlap, on the underlap. So again, Amrim's not always correct that he uses nuance and he uses, a very adaptable formation, fluidity to it. But I think tonight we did see that fluidity, and we did see at times a chaos, but certainly from the outset and 11v10, there was some onus on that kind of getting wide, De Ligt being asked to support Mazraoui, and it was, yeah, Mazraoui didn't have a classic wing back role. Ahmad and Dorgu were interchanging, and Ahmad was often very deep to support Dorgu. So really interesting work, and yeah, like Amram said a few games ago, he doesn't have any issue with playing the bigger teams. And that has shown again, we seem to have a bit more fight and a bit more grit and a bit more tactical understanding when we play these so-called bigger or top six teams.
For me, what's really promising is a lot of the criticism around Amarim in recent weeks has been around the rigidity and this sort of steadfast refusal to deviate from three at the back and so on and so forth. He's shown, I mean, detractors will say that it was against 10 men, but I think even before that, there were promising signs today. It just opens doors, doesn't it, going forward? That it's pleasing to see that adaptability.
Yeah, that's what he's been telling us, and at times that's been true, and certainly tonight that was true. But we'd like to see a lot more, wouldn't we? We'd like to see a lot more. We spoke last game about that being a classic time to go 4-3-3. We against Manchester City in the derby. Mainu would thrive in there alongside a Casemiro and a Bruno. We know that would work really well. Those are positions that are tried and tested for those guys. So we'd like to see it more, and I think that's the kind of plea from not just the fans, and you'd probably think it was coming from the board as well. So it was really pleasing to see some of that fluidity tonight, slight tweaks, but at times it needs to be more than just the occasional tweak. But all we can do is talk about tonight, and like you say, from this game onwards, and that was very pleasing to see. 4-4-2 out of possession, which at times did look like 4-4-2 in possession, and where we've doubled up on the right side with De Ligt and Mazraoui, as we talked about.
Who stood out for you as players? I'm keen to get your idea on a man of the match contenders.
I think was it officially given to Bruno? I've not seen. I've seen some stats. I thought Bruno did really well. Obviously, he's got the goal. He thrives in that kind of diamond ahead when the match is stretched, and it's a big game. So we're no surprise to see him really get on the ball. And at one point, he has put in a deep cross to the far post, and expected Mbumo to be like, you know. Unbelievably quick, and he's had a go, like in his usual manner. But that showed me that he was on his game, and if he's not complaining, then it's not the Bruno performance, is it? But superbly worked goal, some good set pieces. Yeah, leading from the front in the press. So Bruno stood out a little bit. We've touched on Shaw, so again, a big mention to him. I thought he was solid tonight after lots of, if I'm being honest, unhelpful criticism last week, because I think he's had a really strong start to the season. And I'd be the first to talk about his legs and the fact he's been here so long and injury prone. But let's take what we see so far in the season to analyse. And up to now, Luke Shaw's had a fantastic season. So I was pleased to see him being really strong tonight. And if I'm being honest, I would have took him off with 20 minutes to go. He looked dead on his legs, dead on his feet. But really good commitment for the second goal. And I want to praise Mazraoui as well. So lots of talk about, is it going to be Ahmad Mazraoui or Dallo? We knew that as soon as Mazraoui got back from injury, he's a firm favourite under Amarim and the coaching staff. Firm favourite in the Stretford end, of course. And tonight he's showing why. Again, personally, I'd like him in the back three, with Yoro then moving to left centre back at the present time. But when he plays with that tenacity, that front-footedness, that, asking for the ball, dropping deep when he needs to, getting his foot in. I think there was 4 big tackles there tonight, which sounds a low amount, but it's not. It's a really, when you look at the interceptions on top of that, and the ground coverage, and then involvement in 2 goals. For me, there's a cameo there at Burnley, and I'm like, yeah, that's the player we need in at the moment during tricky times. And I thought he really stood out tonight as well. So credit to Mazraoui.
Yeah, you mentioned the subs there. You would have liked to take Luke Shaw off, put Yoro on the left side of defence. What did you make of the subs overall from Amarim's point of view?
Yeah, I think the first thing to say, which is taking up a lot of back pages at the moment, is Kobe's role. So
Yeah.
he's the last substitute that comes on this evening from memory. Yes, I think Casemiro was the right person to start the game. No, I didn't think it was a sending off. I thought he was on fire as usual at the moment. He was pressing well, the goal. He was just, yeah, accurate in his passing. But then can we see Kobe come on? And we don't see that until much, much later in the game. So that's the concern there. And of course, there's this kind of centre back substitution on 65, 70 minutes that seems to happen every single game. There must be
Clockwork.
method to this. There must be. I'm sure it's about minutes again, and Amrim's, real desire to have match fit players out there, which he talks about often, which is probably why we've not seen Le Mans tonight in goal. And the fact Sesko's been withdrawn at half time again shows his principle of caution. Um, but that just seems to be the Portuguese's kind of approach. I personally wouldn't be taking Maguire off tonight. I think he looked solid. You don't change a back line when, yes, they've just come back into it when we've gone down to 10 men. And he looks Okay, there was one moment where he's lost it beyond the halfway, which was not all his fault, but he's lost possession. And then Mazraoui has had to cover him with some wonderful running and then makes the tackle on George in the penalty area. But apart from that, Maguire was solid. So what I would say there is if you've got this onus on fitness, can we look at Luke Shaw, who's starting every game at the moment, who's got this injury, the back track kind of back record of injuries, and he did look tired in the last 10 or 15 minutes. So was that not an obvious substitution if you're going to bring Euro on? Euro for sure. So Euro moving to left centre back, keeping De Ligt and Maguire, who, for all their, let's say, shortcomings at times as a pairing, certainly would have held steadfast there towards the end. So that's probably the two criticisms I have there. Oh, sorry, a third one there, which we did touch on slightly earlier, didn't we, about Ugarte coming on instead of Kobe. Um, Again, that seems to be a common thing, and I just don't think the Uruguayan is mentally with it at the moment. It sounds ridiculous, but I just don't think he's with it, and that shows in losing Doku last week, making the bad pass to Shaw just over the halfway line last week, and tonight just being dragged into that left back position, losing track of Gusto, getting out to him a second, 2 seconds too late, and then loses Reece James, and that's where their corner comes from. So there's there's some methods to Amarim's madness, but one or two of the things I just can't work out, and yeah, they're just points of view from myself on your channel. But that's my thoughts on his substitutions at the present time.